Here's a scenario. Your sink has been leaking for 3 weeks. You've watched 11 YouTube tutorials. You've made 4 trips to the hardware store. You've texted your friend who is a plumber exactly 0 times, even though he would absolutely help and you both know it. You'd rather flood your kitchen than say the 3 words that would fix everything in 20 minutes. Can you help? Sound familiar? Or maybe it's not a sink. Maybe it's a project at work that's drowning you and your colleagues have no idea. Maybe it's a season of your life that's genuinely hard, financially, emotionally, physically, and the people who love you are oblivious because you have become a world-class expert at looking fine. Maybe you've been carrying something for so long that you've forgotten it's even heavy. If that's you, stay with me, because today we're going somewhere real. We're not just going to call this independence and move on. We're going to look at what actually lives underneath the refusal to ask. And I promise, it's more fascinating, more human, and more forgiving than you might expect. Let's start by clearing something up, because the easy read of this behavior gets it completely wrong. People who never ask for help are not, by default, strong. They are not always coping better. They are not secretly fine. The assumption, the one society hands us constantly, is that self-sufficiency equals strength, and asking for help equals weakness. That assumption is not just wrong, it's genuinely harmful. And unpacking why so many people have absorbed it as gospel is where we need to begin. Think back to where you first learned how to handle hard things. For most people, this story starts early, embarrassingly early. A child falls off their bike and looks up at a parent. That parent's response, the tone, the expression, the message hidden inside their reaction, teaches that child something profound about what they're supposed to do with pain. Some children are scooped up, held, their distress validated, their need to ask for comfort met with warmth. Those children learn, at a cellular level, that needing help is safe, that reaching out produces connection, not judgment. But other children look up from that bike and hear something different. You're fine. Don't cry. Shake it off. Or worse, silence. An absence of response that teaches its own lesson. And that lesson is, your needs are a burden. Handle it yourself. Psychologists call the attachment pattern that develops from that second experience avoidant attachment. A style first mapped by researcher John Bowlby and later expanded by Mary Ainsworth in some of the most important developmental research of the 20th century. Avoidant attachment is not, as the name might suggest, about avoiding people entirely. It's more specific and more heartbreaking than that. It's about learning to suppress your needs before they can be rejected, to deal internally with what other people deal out loud, together. To become, over time, someone who doesn't just struggle to ask for help, but someone who genuinely doesn't know how anymore. Someone for whom the request itself feels like a threat. And here's where it gets really interesting from a neurological standpoint. Research using brain imaging has shown that in avoidantly attached individuals, the neural pathways associated with help-seeking are literally less activated. The brain has learned, through years of experience, that reaching out is not a viable strategy, so it stops suggesting it. You don't consciously decide not to ask for help. Your nervous system just quietly removes it from the menu. But attachment history isn't the only road that leads here. Let's talk about a second one, because it's far more common than people realize, and it looks, from the outside, like total competence. There's a particular kind of person who never asks for help, not because they were taught that needs are burdensome, but because they were taught that their value, their place in the room, their reason to be loved, is their usefulness. They are the helpers, the fixers, the ones people call in a crisis. They built an identity around being capable, reliable, the person who has it together. And somewhere in that construction, they accidentally walled themselves into a role that has no door for their own struggle to exit through. Asking for help would shatter the image. Worse, it might reveal that they are not, in fact, as capable as everyone believes. And that terror of being seen as less, That vulnerability is genuinely unbearable for people whose self-worth is so tightly braided with their function. Psychologists have a term for this: contingent self-esteem. Your sense of worth is not unconditional. It's tied to performance, to output, to what you can do for others. The moment you stop performing, stop producing, stop being useful, you don't just feel unproductive, you feel unworthy. And so you keep going. You keep managing alone. You keep the mask on and the load invisible. Not because you're strong, but because you're terrified. Now I want to introduce you to a concept that I think is genuinely one of the most important in all of psychology for understanding this behavior. And it's called the spotlight effect. Coined by researchers Thomas Gilovich and Kenneth Savitsky, the spotlight effect describes the universal human tendency to vastly overestimate how much other people are noticing and judging us. We walk around feeling like we're center stage, like a spotlight is permanently fixed on us, like everyone will see the moment we slip. But the research shows, repeatedly and conclusively, that people are largely absorbed in their own lives. The friend you think will judge you for asking for help is busy thinking about their own problems. The colleague you're afraid to admit confusion to has been quietly confused about the same thing for weeks. The spotlight, almost always, is a lie your anxious brain tells you to keep you from risking connection. And that's the word I want to linger on for a moment. Risk. Because that's what asking for help actually is at its core. It's a risk. It's an act of exposure. You are revealing a limit, a gap, a place where you are not enough on your own. And for people who have been hurt in the places where they showed that vulnerability before, that risk isn't abstract. It's backed by real experience, real memories of reaching out and being dismissed, of asking and being made to feel small, of needing something and learning that the need itself was the problem. Those experiences wire us, and the wiring is not irrational, it's protective. It just becomes, over time, a prison dressed up as a personality. Let's talk about what this costs, because the cost is real and it rarely gets named honestly. People who never ask for help consistently report higher levels of chronic stress, which is not surprising because they are carrying loads that were never meant to be carried alone. But there's something more insidious than stress happening too. When you never ask for help, you systematically prevent other people from being close to you. You deny them the opportunity to show up. You keep every relationship at a curated distance. Friendly, warm, even intimate in some ways, but never truly seen. Never actually known. And what that produces over years is a particular kind of loneliness. Not the loneliness of isolation, but the loneliness of invisibility. The loneliness of standing in a room full of people who think they know you and realizing that none of them actually do, because you've never let them. There's a wonderful study out of Harvard that found one of the strongest predictors of long-term happiness and health was the quality of close relationships. Not success, not achievement, not financial security. Relationships. And the research went further. It found that the willingness to be vulnerable, to need, to ask, was one of the primary drivers of relationship depth. The people who let others in, who said, "I'm struggling," or "I need help," or "I don't know how to do this," those people had richer, more connected, more satisfying lives. Not weaker lives, richer ones. There's a philosopher named Simone Weil who wrote that attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. I think about that a lot in the context of asking for help. Because when you let someone help you, truly let them, you're not just receiving their time or their skill, you're giving them something too. You're giving them the experience of mattering, of being needed, of being the person who showed up. You are, in the act of asking, being generous. And that reframe? That's not a small thing. So what do you do if this is you? If you've been the competent one, the capable one, the person who handles it, for so long that you've lost the muscle memory for reaching out? You start small. Not with the big, vulnerable ask. Not with the admission that feels like too much. You start with something tiny. You ask for a recommendation. You let someone hold the door instead of rushing ahead to open it yourself. You say, "I'm not sure," in a meeting, instead of performing certainty. You let a friend see you struggle, just a little, with something small. And you notice what happens. Because what will happen, almost always, is that the world will not end. The other person will not think less of you. They will, almost certainly, feel closer to you. Because humans are built for this. We are literally wired for mutual care. It's not weakness to need each other. It's biology. And if you're sitting with a deeper fear, the one that says your needs are too much, that you are too much, that asking will only confirm what you've always suspected about yourself, I want to say this as clearly as I can. That voice is not the truth. It's an old story, a story written by a child who learned to survive by disappearing their own needs. And you are not that child anymore. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to be helped. You are allowed to say, "I can't do this alone," and have that be not the end of something, but the beginning. Here at the Psych Spot, we go into the real stuff, the patterns that run quietly beneath the surface of who we think we are. And if today felt like someone put words to something you've been living but never named, drop a comment below. Tell me, what's the one thing you've been handling alone that you probably shouldn't be? And if this video found you at the right moment, subscribe. We're just getting started.